also a believer that the best defense is augmented by a good offense. And so the ability to do offensive operations is just as important in this domain as it is in air, land, sea, and space. And so these are areas that are very important to me and very important to the United States, I believe. And I guess I'd close in the cyberspace domain to circle back. Besides situational awareness, what do we need? Human capital. We're short of the expertise we need to conduct the operations, both operating the net, defending the net, and conducting attack operations through the net today. But we're also short of just fundamental things that we have come accustomed to in air, land, and sea, and those are training capabilities, for example. We have ranges we can go to drop bombs. We have ranges we can fly in. We have ranges at sea we conduct operations. We have land ranges we can conduct land warfare operations for training our operators. Cyberspace is a tough one. And so we're going to need training. We're going to need people. We're going to need the right organizations to develop those people, the right schools, and certainly the right scientific and technical background that you all provide to enable the force to do what it's going to have to do to stay on the leading edge in this domain and assure that the United States will be able to maintain the freedom of action we'll need to not only conduct our business and society, but to conduct the way we fight wars in the future to defend the country. Well, that's a quick tour de force of some of the main things that are on my mind at STRATCOM. There's a few others. Missile defense is pretty high, and you all are plugged in on that as well. Combating weapons of mass destruction is big, and ISR, which I know you're all working those areas too. But what I'm most interested in is having the opportunity now to open up the floor for questions. And I'd certainly love to field any questions you have with regard to STRATCOM or military operations or any of these areas that I've discussed so far. Again, I'll close my remarks by thanking you all for what you do. Like just about every other mission in STRATCOM, I see you folks as kind of the silent partners out there that not many people know what you do. A lot of what you do you can't talk about. I mean, think of the challenges we have in recognizing the people who do nuclear deterrence for this country. We send them to work underground every day or in submarines under the ocean every day. And, they don't get recognized very much. They're out there doing the job every day for this country. They're kind of our silent heroes. The same in space. You don't hear a lot about the folks doing that. It's certainly the same in cyberspace. And certainly the same for this room here, full of folks who quietly come to work, quiet professionals, who are doing critically important work for this country. So thank you for that very much. And I'll turn the floor over to you for questions. I think we have... I'll bet if you holler real loud, I'll be able to hear you.
Do we have questions?
Please, yes, sir.
Well, I was on the phone today to a life sciences organization, and the fellow that I was talking to had trouble with his computer. And he said, well, gee, the Olympics are over, the Chinese must be back to hack. Because I thought that APL maybe was, had the honor of that kind of attention, but apparently this is a lot more pervasive than I realized. Can you say something about that?
About attacks on the networks? Yeah. Look, first of all, I think it's words matter here, and when you start describing these things, I would say what we're seeing on our networks today in the military are not so much attacks as they are espionage. So in the Wayback Machine 20 years ago, my first computer was on my desk about 1988, so before that, which wasn't that far ago. If you wanted to spy on another country, you had to train your spy in their foreign language. They had to blend into society. They probably had to get in a job in the right company that you wanted them to get into. They had to then work their way into a trusted position. Then they had to find out where the secrets were kept, break the code on the safe, sneak in at night with their microfilm, and take pictures and somehow get that back to their parent country. Much easier today when you can sit at home over a cup of coffee on your computer, and because of poor security practices on the other side of the world, wend your way into organizations and download terabytes of information, volumes bigger than the Library of Congress, and bring them back home and then go through them at your leisure. And that's what we're seeing happening today in quite frankly, against some of our networks. Now, there's other attacks going on out there that you won't hear a lot about, but I'm sure you can imagine in the area of criminal activity. They're not coming after my accounts there. They would make a lot of money coming after me. But coming after companies, business sectors, banks, credit organizations, et cetera, and looking at opportunities to exfiltrate large sums of money through, again, chinks in the armor there. It's going on every day on the networks around the world. And it's a problem that is not going to go away. What we're tasked to do at Stratcom uniquely is just to operate and defend the military networks. So if you take that to an extreme, that's like fielding an Air Force that just defends Air Force bases in the United States. The heck with the rest of you. But I would argue we have to at least be able to do that. At least be able to do that. The broader, tougher question. So we're defending what is known as the www.mil and .classified mil networks. Who defends the .com, the .org, the .edu, the .gov, the you name it, that you rely on to do banking, that power companies rely on to provide power for this country, that Wall Street relies on for financial markets, et cetera. We don't have that mission at Stratcom. But the President has stood up an initiative this year, pushed forward funding for an initiative that would give that job to the Department of Homeland Security and would start to look at how we go about doing that in the future to defend this country against what we know is not only going to happen in the future, but it's going on today in a lot of sectors of the market. Yes, sir. Yeah, the question is, does Stratcom see a role for developing technologies? I mentioned the technologies we have today and could implement in a new design that should someone unauthorized get a hold of a nuclear weapon, should they decide to try to take it apart to use the material inside or try to detonate it, that in fact the weapon would become something other than a nuclear weapon. Is there an incentive to develop those types of technologies to perhaps apply to another country's weapons? Yeah, no. We worry about the risk of losing a weapon, but we're one of the harder targets, I would say. We'd like to think of ourselves that way, not to say that we're perfect. And I think the incident at Minot last year shows that we're human, in fact. And so it's important, I think, for us to develop that technology for ourselves, A. But B, where I would go with it is not so, because it's a difficult thing to know where other people's weapons are. They have their own security systems, et cetera, et cetera. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to share that technology with the countries that do have nuclear technology? Because I guarantee you they are every bit as they should be. I'm certain they are every bit as concerned about the consequences of losing control of one of their own weapons. Because the terrorists, quite frankly, we're not the only people on their I don't like list. And even if you've got your hands on a weapon, getting it to the target area, you might elect to, depending on where you got it, decide that transport is pretty high risk and you'll detonate it nearby there. So I think there's great opportunity for sharing these kinds of technology, personally. That answer your question? Okay, the question is, there's been an increased focus on interagency coordination. What's Stratcom's role in that, I guess? What I think uniquely in our mission sets, particularly deterrence and particularly in cyberspace, we absolutely have to have interagency coordination if we're going to be successful. It doesn't mean that we're chartered to solve the interagency coordination issues that exist out there. But